Let's go back to the beginning. Well, talk me through the very beginning, because you had, even before your near-death experience, your first near-death experience in 2000, you were already very sensitive as a child, right? You were feeling things, picking up things. What was that like, growing up with these?
Very confusing. It wasn't nothing like you see in the movies, like exciting. It was very confusing. Literally, and I mean, my mum told me this story not so long ago. She said, and I didn't really believe her when I was younger. She said that when I was born and I was a baby, that she had this cradle and it would rock, obviously, when you pushed it, this wooden cradle. No, she said, and at the time when she told me, because remember, I've trained as also in psychology and as a counselor, so my brain was very science based in a sense. And so, I was like, when she was telling me growing up, I was like, yeah, I'm not too sure. And as I became an adult, I wasn't too sure what she said, but she said, well, you know what you do. I mean, humans
Your
do.
logical brain comes in like,
Yeah, of course it does. Less now, obviously, because the work that I do, but it does. And I don't think there's anything wrong in it. I think you have to question certain things,
okay,
don't
healthy
be in it.
question. Yeah.
It's healthy. And I remember she said when I was a child that the cradle would rock backwards and forwards, and there was this glow of light around me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, mum. I wondered if that was, postnatal depression, because I'd had postnatal depression later on. I was like, maybe there's just something that had happened. And she said she saw her grandmother that she was very close to, and she would see her rocking the cradle when I was a baby in it. So I was like, yeah, okay. So that happened from when I was baby. I don't remember any of that at all. But as I was growing up, I was very close to animals. There was a lot of stuff going on at home. And so what I used to do is I would talk to the pets. I mean, I remember that, and it always stays with me. When we was younger, I mean, a lot younger, my mum had bought a Hoover, and we had all pipes and tubes and stuff. And there was this cardboard box. I mean, yeah, and it had lots of holes in it. So, of course, I saw this box as a hotel, of course. It could be used as a snail hotel. So I went around the garden collecting snails, and I placed the snails in this like pretend hotel. And I was like almost imagining that I could hear them communicating with each other. I know that sounds very bizarre. Now, that could just be, as a child, I had a very good imagination, who knows. But as I grew up, there was more and more things that happened around animals. I started to hear them, and then I thought, actually, maybe they were talking and communicating with me, and maybe I wasn't the only one they were communicating with. And of course, when I was younger, I mean, I'm 52 now, but going all the way back, you're far too young to know about this, but there was a program with Johnny Morris as a presenter. I think it's called Animal Magic. And on the TV program, they used to have animals, and he would like do the voices to them. So he would talk to them, and they almost like spoke back. So as a child, I watched this. And one, it led me down the pathway thinking, wow, how cool this would be to work with big animals, lions, tigers, and elephants. And that's why I ended up being a zookeeper later on. So be careful what you show your children on TV, folks. And then, I thought, okay, somebody else can hear animals speaking. And so I just kept on like hearing animals, and it sort of naturally developed. It was only later on, when I was about 19, I met Johnny Morris as a zookeeper. It was the weirdest thing ever. Some people, I thought it was coincidence, but who knows? And I started having this conversation with him, and I told him I watched him when I was younger. And I said, I hear animals like you do. And he said, no, dear, I don't really hear animals. I just pretend. And it really upset me. I was 19 years old. But I was like, well, I think I hear animals, and that's when I started thinking, am I going crazy? But yeah, as growing up, there was loads of situations I actually saw images and saw people who, I was pointed out by my mum that there's no one there, and I could actually see, people who'd passed over. So yeah, it was a bit of a, there is that thing like you with children who have their best friend, an invisible pretend best friend, but for me, it wasn't pretend, they were there. And so it was there was some conflict within me. It left me, my confidence very low, thinking, oh, what's going on? I'm saying I can see these things, I can hear these things, and others around me saying they couldn't. So it was a very difficult time growing up. I would like to say it was all rosy, but no, not with spirit, it was difficult.